Y aquí, Walter Mercado, para ti, para todos. Y tengo un tema muy importante, para mí el más importante del mundo, salud, salud mental, emocional y física.
Good afternoon, I'm Cristian Benavides. Guys, an icon, a legend of the Hispanic community died over the weekend. Walter Mercado at 87 years old in Puerto Rico. Let's take a look back at his life and what he symbolizes for the Latinx community.
Géminis.
He captivated audiences throughout the world, becoming a household name in Spanish homes in America. Astrologer Walter Mercado, known for ending his horoscopes
Mucho amor.
with much love, died over the weekend in his native Puerto Rico. At his height, he reached over 120 million households a day.
He would blow a kiss to the screen or the camera in order to send a bit of his love.
Known for his unique style of dress, his flair, and the dramatics of his segment, for over a decade he led the end of the nightly news on Univision's news magazine, Primer Impacto. Mr. Mercado graduated with a degree in pharmacology, but his passion was acting. His big break came in 1969 as he was waiting to do an interview to promote one of his upcoming plays on a local TV variety show in Puerto Rico. A guest performer canceled last minute, and he was asked to do a horoscope. Within a year, he had his own television show.
For Latinos, especially of my generation, it signified a moment where you could actually be quiet and everyone focus on one thing in the house at one time.
In recent years, he had faded from the limelight, suffering a heart attack. He spoke to Jorge Ramos of Univision about death just months ago.
But there's inside you something eternal, immortal.
Eternal. So you think that will be there without our body?
Yes, until you're reincarnated.
Kareem Tavash is making a documentary on Mercado.
He really wanted us to know that we were more alike than we were unalike, and that the solution to our issues and our differences and the problems in the world was in loving one another.
All right, so we're looking at your comments, reading what you guys have to say, and also answering all your questions with our panel of experts that I'm about to introduce in this week's Cafecito. We have Yvette Verde from the New York Times. We also have Power Malu. He's an artist, athlete, activist. You guys have seen him on the show before. And we have Amanda Alcantara, digital media editor for Futuro Media Group. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. So we're talking about Walter Mercado. I'm going to begin with you, Yvette. You wrote this beautiful op-ed on the New York Times about what he symbolized to the Latino community. What did he symbolize?
I think he was a person that just really transcended, generations, gender. He really connected all of us. It didn't matter if you believed in horoscopes or not. It didn't matter if you were Catholic or not. We all connected with his message, which was a message of peace, a message of love, of loving yourself, of being kind to those around you, and of empowerment, I think.
Right. I believe, correct me guys if I'm wrong, but I think most of the horoscopes always ended in a positive note, whether you were a Leo or whatever your zodiac sign was. Power, you're Puerto Rican. He is a symbol of Puerto Rico, a legend.
Absolutely, a legend. And in the household, when I'm little and I remember about 5 years old, I remember everybody would just run to the TV, Walter Mercado, cállense, cállense. And if you don't, and you would listen, and then some people would get excited if you said something positive about their horoscope, and right when he was about to get to the next one, if people were talking, you would get knocked over the head. So everybody was really attentive because he shared love, he radiated love, and the things that he spoke about was always positive and always pushing people to do more and do better. But there were a lot of warnings in his horoscopes as well. So, and our families are always like, mucho cuidado. And if you weren't at home, they would call you and be like, mira, escucha, Walter Mercado dijo. And I'd be like, oh, he became like an uncle or something to us.
Right, yeah, we really did grow up watching him. Amanda, what do you think of him, just being gone now?
Yeah, I think It's funny because when the news came out, I thought it was immediately devastating, and I thought, this is so tragic. And I didn't even realize he was 87 years old. He said in an interview that they did of him that he was ageless. And I think the fact that so many of us were like, wow, he was 87. Like, he really was with various generations of Latino families. And I think he represented that. I think he represented a message of joy, of power, of positivity, especially in light of a lot of stigma around Latinos.
Right. So I'm going to read some of the comments that we have coming in. We have Daniel Okner saying, whenever Walter Mercado came on, everybody would stop, which I think we find that to be true. Mucho, mucho amor from Evelyn Mota. My family did for sure, says Oraita Martinez. So, Isvet, I want to go back to the op-ed that you wrote and what you said earlier, that it really transcended generations. What do you think it meant for Latinos here in America? Because he was syndicated, 120 million views at his height, or households at his height. So what do you think it meant for Latinos who, new immigrants coming into this country and still being able to watch him on TV?
Yeah, I mean, I think he, it can be hard to adjust to living here. It can be hard to adjust to being away from your family, being in a new place where you don't speak the language, where you're not really sure how to navigate. And I think it was like a little piece of home, a little piece of like something familiar that was reminding you that it was gonna be okay. You were gonna get through it. It was gonna, you could do this. He had your back, or maybe not had your back, but like,
yeah, no,
you know what I mean? Like he was like, I'm right here with you. You can do this.
Yeah, he had your back for sure, like what you said, and there was also a sense of hope, right? Because like a lot of times we struggle with a lot of things, whether it's language or just trying to familiarize ourselves with a new territory and people in our neighborhoods and stuff. And just watching Walter Mercado was just that hope, that inspiration that everything was going to be all right. And he also taught a lot of us, myself, I speak Spanglish, but I learned a lot of Spanish words from Walter Mercado, and especially through the horoscope, like Géminis, and the way he would like say something, and Libra, and Sagittario, like all of these things. And so I would practice and imitate him, because he was also a character. So not only was he this person that was bringing this astrology and this new form of just spirituality to our households, but he was also, to me, like a character of sorts, very brilliant, very shiny, bright and radiant. And it was just beautiful, and to get that as a youth growing up and seeing this person that people admire on TV. It was just beautiful to have him.
Yeah. Amanda, what do you think you're going to remember the most about Walter Mercado?
Yeah, I think to me, growing up in a Latino household, there's a lot of uncertainty, with the future, with finances sometimes. Like, a lot of Latinos who viewed him are living on a paycheck to paycheck basis, right? And he gave people certainty about something with his message and his horoscopes. So, this is why his message of positivity was so beautiful, especially after a show that showed a lot of tragedy.
Right, Primer Impacto,
right,
the news magazine where you knew you were going to get the guts and the gore and all of that stuff.
And by the way, everything's going to be okay.
Just to end the show on some sort of positive note. There is something about Walter Mercado, also, his sexuality, right? People always wondered, and they always asked. I think every interview, it's so funny because I was looking at his interviews as I was researching for my piece, and I think every interview was Walter Mercado breaks the silence about his sexuality. But it was like 8 different clips from 8 different news agencies. So I'm like, I don't think he's been silent about it.
Yeah,
right?
and neither do I think that he wanted people to even care about that stuff. It was more spiritual for him, and that was groundbreaking in itself. Like, he was himself. He made people feel comfortable just to be yourself, and no judgments. He is this person that you've never met before, but he becomes part of your family, and then he just like is just expressing love to people and giving messages, so all of that doesn't matter. It's no gender, like, just spiritual.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think he went beyond gender in a way which was really groundbreaking in our community. And just as I was writing my piece, I went back and just looked through a few of his clips, and there was this one clip that I really, really loved where he was like, you know, prescribing this bath to attract love. And there was this really special moment where he was like, don't do this just because I'm telling you. Love yourself just as you are, you know. And that was really like powerful to hear, I think, for, I mean, not just me, I think as someone who maybe like felt like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And you know, I just did a piece for LatinoUSA.org where I wrote about how young people and young queer Latinx were very, very inspired by Walter Mercado. So I interviewed this one astrologer who, you know, imitates him in her videos, right? And who takes on almost like this very Walter-esque persona. And I think, you know, while his sexuality transcended, I think for a lot of people it also hit home.
Right.
Yeah, I think, you know, what it was is that in the Latino media, when you looked at the telenovelas at the time that he came out, I mean, seeing someone that wasn't conforming to what, you know, the regular man is supposed to be, it was just, I think it was groundbreaking at the time. And I think still towards his final days, there's also a lot of talk about his age, right? They say he's 87 years old, but I think, what did you find through your research?
I found that it's all just a bit of a mystery. That there are like 3 or 4 versions of every story about him and about his origins. Some sources said he was 87, some 88, you know, but it doesn't matter. At the end, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, I think keep it like that is just like very mystical. You know, he purposefully like did that, you know, ageless. It's more about spirituality. It's spiritual beings, you know, living in a human body. That's it. Like he wanted to keep it that way. One thing I wanted to say is that also our families like to play, this is not good, but they like to play lotto. And I used to always get stressed out to go run to play the lotto before it closes. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't like go now, play this number. And I'm like, I'll always remember that because it was like
a lot of belief in divination, you know?
Yo, for real. And some of them used to hit. No, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think that he really inherently understood that it's good to have a little mystery and like, you know, a little, you don't reveal everything. Certainly not at the same time or at all. You know, and there's something about that I think is in our culture now that is we have so much access to information about each other's lives that there was something special about that too.
Yeah, I think there's also something about him being, right, as Latinos, as Hispanics, a lot of people from our culture are very religious, right? And they hang on to the word of the Bible, or they hang on to the word of what they hear. So I think that's another reason that Walter Mercado became so special, because they really listen to it and they're like, well, so this is how my month is going to go from now on, right? So, you know, ten cuidado, be careful, because something, you know, there's a storm brewing, and I think people really believed in that.
Yeah,
absolutely,
He also left room for us to actually have a conversation about it, because after the show was done, then we would talk, what do you think he meant? Like, yo creo que está diciendo esto mucho, tu amiguito, el que estaba allá el otro día, estaba hablando de él, cuidado, you know, that kind of thing. Like, they would come up with their own little stories.
Dropping things.
The enemies.
They would just be like, yo, remember the other day, this guy, that's what he's saying. Ay, es verdad, tiene razón.
You're right.
You know?
I love how, like, in every horoscope, there would be one sign that he would be like, you are going to find love this month. So is everyone finding love? Like, what does this mean? You know?
Yeah, and you know what? You believe it, like, by convenience, too. Because if the news was too bad, it was like, no, it's not. The horoscope thing, that's not true. Don't believe it. That's not true. It's not true today, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but if it was convenient, you're like, yeah, see, I told you guys.
That's
right.
right.
I told everybody.
That's right. Well, I mean, I listened to him every morning when I was getting ready to go to school. So for me, it was like, today, it's gonna be a marvelous day, or whatever. You were like, yeah, I'm ready.
You know, I told when my mom watched my piece, it was actually how she found out that Walter Mercado died. So we were speaking about it afterwards, and she was telling me, I remember that I used to watch that with your grandma. And I'm like, oh my God, like it just makes you realize how long he had been on TV. His height, obviously in the 90s, but even in Latin America, my family's from Ecuador, even in Latin America, him having his show from 1969 up until today, having a following. I want to, let me look at the time.
Amazing.
We have to wrap up, but I want to get final thoughts from each one of you about what Walter Mercado meant and what you hope people that maybe didn't know him take away from this segment that we did today. So I'm going to begin with you, Isvet.
I think, I think he signified hope for me and love and just to be centered and love yourself and accept people as they are and what was the other question?
So people that don't know who he is, how should they remember him?
People who don't know who he is. Well, I would just recommend that you spend some time on YouTube and get to know him.
Right. So I guess could you recycle his horoscopes? I saw an interview. I'm sorry, I know we have to wrap up, but I just have to mention I saw this interview that he did with Telemundo, and he spoke about why he left Univision. And a part of it, according to what he said during this interview, was that they wanted to rehash his horoscopes, and he said no. And it became such a point of contention that he left Univision because of it and started his own thing. Power, what do you hope people take away from today?
Yeah, I hope people get inspired by someone who was taking risks. Especially at that time. I mean, you say this is the 60s where he started. I mean, imagine how much backlash he got behind the scenes that we don't hear about. Today, we have a lot of people that are waking up and daring to be themselves and be honest with who they are and what they project. And this is someone who represents our people. And so we should feel inspired that he dared to step up and just say, you know what, I'm going to be me and I'm going to do what I enjoy doing and sharing and spreading love. And I think that we should all take something from that and just be, loving people.
Sure, Amanda.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you said. Just not being afraid to be yourself, even in spaces like the mainstream where we're constantly told to fit into certain boxes. And I also hope that his own sign-off message remains, right, which is to live life con paz, mucha paz, pero sobre todo mucho amor.
Guys,
I love that.
Thank you so much for joining me on this week's edition of Cafecito.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Cafecito.
So that's it for this week's edition of Cafecito. I'm Cristian Benavides. I hope you'll join us again next week. And today we're ending with a little special clip at the end of our show. So have a good afternoon and we'll see you next week.
Pero sobre todo, ¿qué? Mucho, mucho, mucho amor.